Welcome to Local Business Spotlight. I'm Anne Rea, and my guest today is Jim Monast of Monast Law Office. And Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to be here.
Well, Jim, I'm anxious to find out about your law practice. So tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I have a practice that's pretty much devoted to workers' compensation matters, and basically that involves situations whereby if people are injured at work and they have difficulty obtaining payment for their medical treatment or compensation while they're off, then I can help them with that.
And so how long have you had the practice now?
Well, I started out, and I did some mediation work at the prosecutor's office after I got out of law school, and I took the job with the Workers' Compensation Bureau as a staff attorney in 1985. And worked there for a few years, and then went out into private practice, first as an associate with a firm down in German Village, and then I was in a partnership for 23 years after that. And that recently, we separated into solo practices early last year. So about 29 years now, I guess.
That's a long time to have a specialty.
Which is hard to believe since I'm only 29 years old.
That's right. So quite a specialty.
I think it is. There's not a lot of us that handle workers' compensation work, and we all seem to kind of know each other because we run into one another all the time.
It sounds like an interesting practice to have.
It really is, because my folks, I was really the only one of my family up until that point that had gone to college, let alone to law school. And my dad had worked in sales, and my mother worked as a cashier and cosmetics sort of assistant at Tremont Pharmacy in Upper Arlington when I was growing up. And so it's kind of neat, and I've done a variety of jobs. I started working at 13, doing janitorial work. I've driven a forklift. I've driven a truck. I worked for John Mount, who was the vice president over at Ohio State, and I've done restaurant work, a variety of things. And I enjoy, it's kind of fun to be involved with folks that actually do work for a living. And that's what I do. I represent people, whether they are police officers or firemen or truck drivers or nursing assistants or nurses or teachers aides, just a whole variety of folks in the workforce.
You say there are some other people who do what you do.
Yep.
What sets you apart from everybody else?
There's some excellent attorneys that handle workers' compensation matters in Columbus. And, we're a small practice. And I think what sets us apart sometimes is our accessibility. The gals that work for me, they make me look good, really. They really do. They do a lot of the... and our clients, we have clients that... nobody's having a good day when they have to contact an attorney. Who wants to contact an attorney? Nobody does. I wouldn't. And we get folks who have been injured. They're concerned about paying their bills. They're concerned about providing for their family. And they call us, and we listen to them, and we see how we can help them. And it's very gratifying that we have clients that we've represented for years and years and years, and they'll just call sometimes just to chat. If they're having life issues or problems, my staff is really good at actually just because we've all gone through life problems and issues and, with family and kids and work and et cetera, and we can kind of relate to that. And I think it's really a blessing to our clients. And if they're calling, they may call because they're just having a rough time in a situation in their life that, we've gotten to know them because of their claim, but they feel free to call us because, I don't know, it's just somebody that they can
talk to.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You're listening to Local Business Spotlight. I'm Anne Rea, and my guest is Jim Monast. Monast Law Office, 614-334-4649 is the number to call. 334-4649. You can go to monastlaw.com, MONAST law.com. Jim, we're hitting a part of the show that really, I think, helps most of us understand what you do really well, because you get to tell us a story about somebody you were able to help. And that really kind of gives us a picture of what it's like to work with you.
Yeah. Well, there have been so many folks that I've been, it's been a real privilege to work with them over the years. And I think sometimes the people that when I think of a response to that question, I think of folks that it's not necessarily even, I mean, we've helped them in a variety of ways, hopefully to get compensation. But I have a client in particular right now that comes to mind that his wife he's been injured. He had a pretty significant work injury involving his leg, but his wife is now in the hospital because she's battling not only cancer but diabetes, and she's been having, had to have a leg removed. And he called us just because he's kind of at his wit's end. Now, I can't do much on that in terms of getting money for him or anything like that, but it's just that they feel like we're somebody that they can call. And, in terms of people that I've been able to help compensation-wise, it's a treat to help folks who are, most people don't want to be off work. Workers' compensation, I think, gets a bad rap. I know when I started working at the Bureau years ago, my boss, who was the law director of the Bureau at that time, told me, and I had no knowledge of workers' compensation. I had no idea what it was at that point. He said, a lot of times people think that people on workers' compensation are it's like being on welfare, and that isn't it. People that are receiving workers' compensation have been hurt on the job. 95% of them just want to get fixed and get back to work because they're not going to get rich on workers' compensation payments. And there's a lot of satisfaction that people get out of their work. So I think a lot of times people that are hurt on the job get a bad rap because we all know stories of somebody that was working it or, frankly, I think there's a lot fewer of those folks than we might generally think, I guess, unless you practice in this area. And I will say to my shame, I probably thought that originally when I worked as a staff attorney for the Bureau because I represented the state insurance fund. But being in private practice, most folks really just want to get medical treatment and get compensated while they're off work and can't pay their own bills. And that's really what this system is designed to do.
Tell me a little bit about the website.
The website is ohiocompensationattorney.com. And we set that up about a year or so, a little over a year ago when I went out into the solo practice. And I've got, I do some blog posting on there occasionally. I have a newsletter that I send out. I have answers to common questions that come up a lot, and questions I would have if I was injured at work and didn't know where to go, what to turn. I have, links on my site to the Bureau of Workers' Compensation website or the Industrial Commission. The Industrial Commission is the outfit that decides disputed claims. So a lot of times people that file claims get hurt at work, they have a cut finger or hurt back or something like that. They'll go to the emergency room and get treatment. There's never a dispute on it. I mean, there's no doubt that they were hurt at work. There's no need to go to a hearing. Sometimes there are questions, though, that arise, and employers may have questions and say, well, we'd like to have the Industrial Commission decide this because we're not sure. Or the Bureau of Workers' Compensation may have questions on that. And so matters that are in dispute will go to hearing, as opposed to going to court, for example, if you have an auto accident. The workers' compensation system is set up to where you go to an administrative hearing and you have a hearing officer who's an attorney hired by the state, who's a neutral party in a position of making decisions on disputed matters. So in any event, I have links to those things. I have hopefully a lot of helpful information that even if people are just trying to kind of handle things on their own, may give them some guidance. But a lot of times in this system, I think it was initially designed where people can handle it on their own. But you got to keep in mind, employers have representatives in claims. The Bureau has attorneys that represent the state interest on claims. And so sometimes it's best to have someone in your corner that can give you some guidance and make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And also, it can be a confusing process. So I think it's helpful. Obviously, that may sound self-serving, but from experience, I think it's very helpful to have somebody that can explain to you what's going on and what needs to be done and take some of that burden off of you while you're trying to recover.
Well, Jim, now, you kind of touched on a little of this perhaps, but I want you to address it. What are some misconceptions that are out there about what you do?
Well, again, the first one I'd go back to is this notion that people that are hurt on the job are just bums, perhaps, or don't want to go to work, or people that are receiving workers' compensation benefits. And again, that is very far from the truth. Again, folks just want to get fixed, I think, generally, and get back to work. There's also, I think, misconceptions that someone can handle this stuff on their own. In some cases they can. If it's really simple and if it's not disputed, then there's no need to have an attorney involved with your case. There's also a misconception, I think, that folks sometimes have that, well, if I've worked for an employer for a long time, they'll treat me fine. I won't need to worry about it. And not to denigrate employers, because I'm an employer too, but you have to realize that sometimes the folks making the decisions on whether to contest a claim or not are people that don't know you from Adam. They're people higher up in the corporate food chain, shall we say, who are interested in how can we limit the costs on claims. So your claim may be very legitimate, and an employer may have other reasons for contesting it. They may prefer that your claim get turned in under private insurance, your health insurance, for example, because it costs them money on a claim if it's filed. And keep in mind that workers' compensation really is a big insurance program. Employers in the state pay workers' compensation premiums so that if someone is injured on the job, and it's a no-fault system, so it doesn't matter if you're responsible for dripping water on the floor that you then slip in, or somehow the employer is responsible that it didn't clean up that mess on the floor that you slipped in. But the goal is to then, it's a no-fault system to get you your medical bills paid, your treatment approved, and compensation for you in lieu of the wages that you've lost due to an injury. And I know from experience that a frustration that a lot of my clients have is, why are they fighting this claim? And I've been there. I've had injuries before I've never bothered to turn in, and I've been there 20 years or 25 years. Well, the good news is it's nothing personal. The bad news is it's nothing personal. It's they're looking at costs on claims. So sometimes you'd think that they're out to help you, but you have to realize that they have sometimes different goals in the system than you do.
Well, Jim, let me tell everybody again how to reach you. Now, actually, you could go to monastlaw.com, or that will actually direct you to ohiocompensationattorney.com. So ohiocompensationattorney.com. You can also call Jim at 614-334-4649, 334-4649. And my guest has been Jim Monast, Monast Law Office. Jim, thanks for being with us on Local Business Spotlight.
Thank you so much, Anne. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks again for joining me for Local Business Spotlight. The views expressed are those of the participants and may not reflect the views of the staff, ownership, or advertisers of this station, Salem Communications Corporation, or Salem Media of Ohio. I hope you'll join me next week for Local Business Spotlight.